of the tiger, a fighter, dancing through the fire, 'cause I am the champion, and you're gonna hear me roar. Louder, louder than a lion, 'cause I am the champion, and you're gonna hear me roar.
Welcome to the Theater Podcast, intimate personal conversations with the industry's biggest names. I'm your host, Alan Seals, and our guest for this episode is Philippe Arroyo, who is making his Broadway debut in & Juliet. This episode continues the & Juliet takeover. This is episode 2 of 5 of the full takeover. Philippe, who plays Francois Du Bois, one of my favorite characters, by the way, is this young guy in real life whose career is just taking off. I cannot wait to see where he goes from here, because this amazing role that he has originated on Broadway is only the beginning. So here we go. Find me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, etc., etc., etc. The same stuff I always say. Leave a rating, leave a review, help the podcast grow. Tell a friend, lean over next to you and be like, hey, person, hopefully there's somebody there. You got to listen to this podcast. It's the best. All right. All right. So let's get going here. Enjoy this episode with Philippe Arroyo.
Since you've been gone, I can't breathe for the first time. I'm so moving on, yeah, yeah. Thanks to you, now I get what I want. Since you've been gone.
Today's guest is making his Broadway debut playing Francois Du Bois, one of my favorite characters in the runaway hit & Juliet. A Carnegie Mellon graduate, past credits include the first national tour of Aladdin, Joe Iconis' Punk Rock Girl, and the first national tour of Into the Woods. Now continuing this amazing & Juliet podcast takeover, Philippe Arroyo, welcome to the Theater Podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course. And this is the calm before the storm we were just talking about as we're recording this. You're joining us from a lovely vacation in the woods?
Yeah, I just came back yesterday. We stayed in New Hampshire for the week. I hadn't taken a break since doing the show in Toronto the past summer, so it's one of those instances where you don't realize you need a vacation until you're actually there. It's always sad to leave the show because it's kind of like my daily dose of dopamine because it's so happy and so joyous. So when I was gone, I definitely missed it, and I'm excited to jump back in.
So, wow, so you've been doing this since Toronto 8 times a week here. How often was the Toronto schedule even that rigorous as well? And like,
yeah, it was more or less the same exact schedule with some rehearsals here and there, because at the time a lot of our understudies hadn't been on yet, so we had to learn the show with them. But as we've gone on, there have been less and less rehearsals, but it's still that 8-show-week schedule, which is just brutal sometimes, but still very fun.
You're coming back from this vacation now. What do you do normally to like recharge in general? Like, legitimately, you open the show and then have you just been going nonstop? What do you normally do to recharge in these situations?
Yeah, nonstop, really. Every day coming into the show, it is a lot of fun to do, but at the end of the day, when you come back, you have to spend a lot of time with yourself, and you need that time alone sometimes to reinvest and be able to do it again. So I spend a lot of my time at the Drama Bookshop. Funnily enough, I ran into Lin-Manuel Miranda today on the street, and he's calling my name, which is so surreal because him and we don't know each other very well, but he saw the show recently, and I turn around, and that was the last person ever that I thought would be calling my name. He was like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I'm going to the Drama Bookshop." Or I was on my way, and so was he, and so it was a fun little walk that we had together. But the past few weeks, I have been trying to go there every day, and it's an awesome like little cafe area, and I've been picking up a play a day and just reading, and that to me has been the best way to recharge, because it's still involving art, and it's, musical theater, and theater is just one of my favorite things in the world. So to still have access to it even on my days off, or that's just what I love to do.
Oh, that's so cool. It's really neat that you still immerse yourself in all of this, even when you don't have to, which I think speaks to the drive you must have. But I want to back up again then, because as little Philippe, where were you first attracted to theater? What originally got you into singing, dancing, performing? Was it just like
Yeah.
a love of stage?
Well, no, I think I wanted to be like famous, which is the worst thing in the world. You know, I think as a kid, I was maybe this is getting like a little too honest here, but I think I was looking for validation in all the wrong places, and I was like, oh, you know what? I'm pretty good at theater, and people tell me that I'm really good, so I ended up falling into it for reasons that I have now learned to grow out of. As an adult, I've had to really investigate why it is I fell in love with this in the first place, and or really kind of reevaluate why I'm in love with it now. And what I've found is that it provides a excellent medium for honesty and to provide honesty to the world and being honest with yourself. And I'm finding as I grow and shape as an artist, I'm actually growing as a person as well. And the more those line up, the better I feel about what I'm doing on stage. Because really, it's the best when I'm doing my best on stage. It has nothing to do with me. It's all to do with the people that I surround myself with, and the people that I'm speaking to, or acting with, or singing with, or dancing with. Yeah, not to get too heady or too
No, I
too
think
artsy fartsy about it, but
I think it's really cool. And I notice a parallel too in kind of your character Francois, of you trying to figure out why you're doing things and being honest with yourself, and then Francois and Juliet is sort of doing the exact same thing 8 times a
yeah,
week. So I'm wondering, like, what influenced the other, if being with Francois as long as you have, having that person inside you has sort of
yeah.
brought you to yourself and been like, well, let me really evaluate who I am.
Say hello to the boy that I am.
Yeah, I mean, I think the character has shifted as we've started this whole process, which I would only hope that would be the case. As I grow as a person, so does Francois, and vice versa. I've learned so much about myself in this process, and honesty has been a huge thing in that. I think this show, it's so easy for you to want to compete with the fireworks and the fact that we're singing this amazing Max Martin music like Katy Perry and I Kissed a Girl and all those things. But I've really found something. I think through the direction of Luke Shepard, the cast has all agreed that there's a nuance. There's a heart to the show that needs to still stay there. I think the less we try to be funny, I think the more heart that goes through the show, because the show by itself, David West Reed has written an amazing book, and you really don't have to try all that hard. It stands alone as it is. But yeah, the more honest I can be on stage, the more honest I find myself in life, and I just want that to carry through so much. I want to be the best version of myself at all times, only so that I can supply audiences and my scene partners with that as well.
That's an interesting. It's really interesting. I think that you've sort of internalized this and embodied all of this, and I feel like you've got a very good perspective on all of it now, especially considering like Katy Perry just came to see the show, and
Right.
other people, right? So you've got all of these stars that are coming to see the show that originated the songs that Max Martin ultimately originated, right? So putting all that in perspective, now making your Broadway debut, is this sort of where you saw yourself even 5 years ago, or did you sort of think it would be a different path, or was this like, yeah, this is my 5-year plan, I'm living my dream?
I mean, to answer your question, yes, in so many ways, it's exactly where I wanted to be, and now it's here. I think life is incredibly unpredictable, uncontrollable, and I think that's one of the beauties of it. Of course, now that I'm in my late 20s, early 30s, I look back on it, and I think prior to this point, I wish that it had happened sooner. But now that it's here, and it happened the way that it happened, I'm so grateful for for when it did, because when I was younger, I don't know that I would have been able to handle the pressures of being on Broadway and having Katy Perry see me in the audience. I think young Philippe would have freaked out internally. But as you season, as you get older, and in the acting world or in the art world, I think you start to learn things about yourself, and you start to let go of other people's perceptions of you and want to do this just for yourself. I think that's kind of Francois's whole arc. He wants to let go of other people's perceptions, and he wants other people to accept who he is. That's his big journey in the show, is acceptance and rejection. He lives in a world where he's constantly rejected for who he is, and he just wants to be accepted for who he is, and his whole journey is all about finding that acceptance within himself and finding the courage to fight for his own true love. And he's helped along the way with Juliet and May, and I think it's a beautiful journey, and I think it's helped inform my life.
What's wrong with being? What's wrong with being? What's wrong with being confident? Oh.
He's a brave man. He is. He's courageous. He isn't the most honest, but that's something that he finds. He isn't honest with himself at the beginning. He isn't honest with his father in the beginning, but he has to find that courage to be honest and fight for his love, regardless of whether anyone will accept him or not. He has to let go of that perception of others.
And I want to back up to something you said, asking about why you got into theater in the first place. Because you said, like, you said you wanted to be famous, which I think a lot of kids just want that attention, myself included. So I can relate and understand. There's a lot of different ways you can try to be famous, and even kids now young people now have a way of doing it that didn't exist when I was that age. Like social media, you can
know
just
nothing about that world.
Yeah, right. So, but what was it about theater specifically that attracted you? Why not TV? Why not film? Why not, in your late teens, be like, I'm going to be a YouTube star? Because that was on the rise. That was, I guess it was past on the rise. There were already YouTube stars.
No, by that point, I remember one of the first things on YouTube that I saw, which was really, YouTube was a huge inspiration for me growing up, and all those YouTube stars. I remember seeing Michael Arden perform "Run Away with Me."
Run away with me. Texas in the summer is cool. We'll be on the road like Jack Kerouac. Looking back, Sam, you're ready. Let's go. Run away with me.
That was one of the very first YouTube videos that I ever saw, and he came to see the show recently, and it was so surreal because that was one of my first introductions into theater. Was just watching people like Natalie Weiss, hearing Brian Scott Oliver's brand new tune on YouTube, Michael Arden, performing his music, and I kind of fell into it because I would look at how these people would perform, and something about it felt incredibly freeing to me. I think when I was a kid, I wasn't very good in school, and I wasn't the most academically savvy kid. I kind of slacked off a little bit. When I found theater through YouTube, I started to join in, and it became something that I ultimately started to care so much about. And I don't know that I can give you an exact reason as to why. I think for thousands of reasons why it was theater first. I think I started singing, and there was a freedom in that. I think in high school you get caught up, you want to fit in, and there's a lot of anxiety surrounded in high school. And for the first time in my life, I would sing a song. I would sing a Jason Robert Brown song, and maybe I didn't completely understand it, but there was something about getting lost in a lyric or a phrase, or finding a nuance in why the author had written it that way, that I would get so thrilled and so excited about. And so ultimately, that's, I think, truthfully why I stuck with theater. But the ugly side would be that there was also a sense of validation that I think young Philippe was looking for and
Hmm.
have since become very good at letting go of. But yeah, that's the ugly truth.
No, it's not ugly at all. I think I think it's very similar to a lot of people why they get into theater. It's I was talking to somebody the other day who was just saying like that applause, right? You can't deny that when you get those standing ovations, you get a room full of
Hmm.
people applauding for you, that it feels good. It's, chemicals being released that become
Yeah.
addictive. And then, so how do you separate yourself from that? I
Well,
totally get it.
it's also nice to see that you've done something that makes people happy or feel something, feel anything. And I still get that from Anne Juliet. I think, when we're singing Roar at the curtain call and you can just see so many people dancing along and they're just so happy and thankful to be there, especially after the pandemic. Like this musical, I think is just so healing and I'm so thankful and grateful to be in it. And I get to do it every day and I never get tired of it. I just want to be. I'm like, I want to be there right now. I want to go backstage and get in my costume. Every time I put on my little jacket and my little glasses, I get so happy. I love it.
And the rest of the cast too seems like really genuinely caring
Yeah.
and supportive and watching. I love watching ensemble. I love watching
Hmm.
everybody on the fringes of a scene when the leads are supposed to be downstage center and all our attention is supposed to be on them because
Yeah.
I love the interaction behind among everybody because especially in this show in Anne Juliet there seems like there's such a true love and respect and literal just enjoyment of being on
Hmm.
stage and getting to sing and dance these phenomenal songs that are already proven Billboard toppers, chart
Yep.
toppers.
Hmm. There's not one person in that building that I don't love.
Yeah, yeah, and
Everyone is a kind human being, and Luke Shepard, the director, I think, was trying to make that his number one goal was to hire people that he thought were genuinely good people, and then the rest would come.
it's really interesting to me. I've talked with Luke and Jen, the choreographer, and Luke was saying during that episode that he doesn't know pop. He didn't know pop before taking this job. Did you know that?
No, I have
Yeah,
no idea.
yeah,
But
not a pop
I
guy.
believe that though.
I can, yeah, yeah. After talking with him, it makes sense given his background. But
Yeah.
it's odd to me how everything came together in such a wonderful way to put this lightning in a bottle. And I've said this before, but yeah, it really is lightning in a bottle with this show, and I think it's going to last for a really long time. So
I hope so.
hopefully, yeah, hopefully, you can have that problem of trying to decide when you're going to leave the show for your next big thing, right?
Oh, never.
Never will you leave. But when did you first get involved with it? Like have the script run across your desk or heard even this concept of the
Yeah,
show, which to me seems on paper seems pretty odd.
I heard about it. I didn't know that it was in the UK. So my agent had just submitted me for Romeo, and I turned in my Romeo audition, and I thought I killed it, but I was like, I don't think they're gonna give this to me. I don't know. I'm more of a musical theater kid, pop. That's not really my bag. And then didn't get it, but a few months later, I got an audition for Francois Du Bois, and I was reading it over. I was looking at some of the material they sent me, and I hit my agent up and I said, "Listen, I can't do this." And I told him no.
What?
And he asked me why, and he said, "Well, it's Francois Dubois. Like, I can't do a French accent." And he's like, "No, Philippe, just no. That's not what they need at all. Just do it in your normal voice." I don't know where I got into my brain that Francois Dubois had to have a French accent, but there are definitely takes of me attempting to say the lines in a full French accent that will forever stay in my phone, that will never see the light of day.
Can you sing I Kissed a Girl in a French accent?
My name is Francois Dubois. That's not that bad. I had to
I
listen to a
kissed
lot of Monty Python.
I'm French! Why do you think I have this outrageous accent, you silly king?
I kissed
To
a
get
girl
that.
and I liked it.
Oh.
I think I go back to Little Mermaid, like that kind of
Oh
like
yeah, the
the
chef.
stereotype, the chef like, Zutalu, what is this?
Yeah, my God.
But yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun, but definitely not necessary, but a bold choice. Always make bold choices.
Bold choice. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
get
so
it.
then I went in and just callback after callback. It was seemingly like it was seeming like it was going to be between me and a few other people. And then, I just tried my best to let it go, but it's so hard when you make it to the end to let things like that go. But luckily it ended up working out.
And this was for the Toronto production.
For the Toronto production, but it was
Yeah.
also included, there would be the Broadway production within that offer as well.
Oh, do they
Mhm.
often do that? Where like this,
Never.
it's a known. Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it was odd.
Never. No. I mean, it happens oftentimes where you'll do a pre-Broadway show and they'll do some recasting, or some people will be
Yeah,
unable to do the show for whatever reason. So it's incredibly rare, and I think that just goes to show that the creative team were very diligent in their casting process, and they wanted to choose the right people for the job.
that's really interesting that they knew that far in advance that this was the cast they wanted to take to Broadway. That's
Mhm.
really cool. That's really cool, and I think it speaks highly to the creative team and the producers and everything as well. Um, in that, I mean, there are years. There are sometimes years and many versions, many productions of a
Mhm.
show that create the final version that everybody thinks is the
Yeah.
greatest thing. But there's so many people that get forgotten and lost in all
Yeah.
those iterations. So to be able
I've definitely
to,
been in productions where, I've been replaced before and it's never a good feeling. So I think I had just gotten replaced I won't say the name of the show, but I just had gotten replaced in a show that's now coming to Broadway. And I was feeling very sensitive about it. So when I got this audition and it said pre-Broadway and Broadway, I said, well, if I get this is going to be a wonderful ego boost. It's going to make me feel incredibly safe to my sensitive heart.
well, you don't have to tell us what it is on air. So let's turn off the mics. Okay, the mics are off. Go ahead. You can say what it is now. I won't tell
I'm
you
not going to give me.
what. So then there's always the possibility that things just don't make it to Broadway, right? That's very very strong possibility. So you get the
Sure.
role. Do you remember where you are when you got the call? First off,
I was in rehearsal for this. I was making my off Broadway debut in this show called Penelope. During one of the songs, I feel my phone ring, and I'm in rehearsal. I'm rehearsing. I'm in the middle of a scene, and I know what it is. So I just leave. I walk out. I go into the hallway, get the call. I come
like,
back in. I'm like, sorry guys, I just booked Broadway.
wow. So
And everyone was like, everyone knew what I was leaving for, or walking out into the hallway for, because they knew that I had been expecting a call that week. So they
wow.
totally understood.
Oh God, that's got to be rough on multiple people. Yeah, I guess the Penelope crew too. So or cast and crew. So good on them. But you get the call, go to Toronto, everything's great, and then is there that moment where you're just did you guys always know it was coming to Broadway, or was there ever a moment where it was like, yeah, we don't know if like things are gonna happen, or if we get a theater or whatever the case is. Like the inner workings in the business is always so tough behind all this.
Yeah, we were incredibly lucky. We found out that we got our theater our first week of rehearsal, I think.
Wow.
Our second week, maybe.
That's awesome. Yeah, so this was
So
just written.
morale
This was
was just
written.
high that day. I
Oh,
remember.
that's so
I
cool.
think it's recorded somewhere on my phone because Eva Price, our head producer, came in and had some exciting news. So we all kind of were expecting something.
Oh, that's great.
It was
Eva,
so surreal.
yeah, Eva's wonderful, and I think she's always done a good job in what she's doing too.
Yeah, yeah, she's the best.
She brought Titanic off Broadway as well.
It's so good.
It's so good. Love Titanic. Yeah, quick plug for Titanic. Go see that shit after you go see Anne Juliet, because that needs to be seen. With all the journey that you've had with the show and the people that you've met and the Katy Perrys that have come to backstage and the Max Martins
Yeah.
that you've met in the process, do you have a standout pinch me moment that's just like,
Yeah,
wow, I'm now doing this thing that I've always
yeah,
thought I wanted to do?
yeah. Second time I'm bringing up Lin-Manuel again. But when he came to see the show the first time, I don't know. I think it's because he's Puerto Rican and I'm Puerto Rican, and we're both from the same hometown in Puerto Rico. He's obviously someone who's moderately successful in the Broadway world,
Yeah,
and
he's done a couple things.
he's done a thing or two. You know, whenever the two times that I've seen him, I've played it very cool, very chill. Like I'm not freaking out and having a normal conversation, but
You're like Lin. What's
internally,
your last name? Mirandy. Lin
Mirandis.
Mirandis. Yeah, Mirandis.
Is that
yeah.
German? Um, but yeah, I think seeing him, and it was right after the Backstreet Boys song, "Everybody," which is a boy band number that I do in the show. And we engage with the audience, and I look down and I see Lin-Manuel Miranda with his kids waving their hands in the air like they just don't care. And I got so scared when I saw him because I was like, man, I had no idea he was in the audience until I saw him towards the end of the show, and I thought, man, I hope he likes it. But he did. It was so clear from the hand waving.
and he knows it well enough to remember you and call your name on the street, which is
That
got to be pretty
was,
cool too.
yeah, it's a good feeling. It made me feel like, a big Broadway star or something.
you are. Do you like the I guess the creative side of it, and is that something you've ever thought about pursuing too? Because if your recharge time is reading other plays, and you seem to get a little bit of a love of when you were talking about getting lost in lyrics and why composers write things or why writers write things the way they do. It seems like you've got another little side quest in your life somewhere of writing and creating your own stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I've written a few things. In college, I wrote a play that my school ended up producing, and not producing, but they helmed. And then during the pandemic, I would write a few things. I wrote my first screenplay during the pandemic. And then recently, it happens very rarely when I get the impulse to write, but very recently, I've been inspired from movies such as like Call Me by Your Name, some flick with Matt Damon and Robin Williams.
Matt
Um,
Damon, Robin Williams. Good Will Hunting?
Good Will Hunting. Those
Yeah,
are very
that's oh
similar
god.
movies in a way, weird way. Just the way that they're written, the way that they're shot. I've watched them recently, back to back, and there is an idea that's been brewing in my head ever since then. And right now, I'm in the stages where I'm just talking about it a lot. But that's when it's the most exciting, because you start to, before you put it on paper, you start to get all these little silly ideas. And what if that happens? Or you start to like outline it in your head. Starting that process to eventually finish something is so stressful, but also so gratifying, because that was the first thing I ever wanted to be as a kid, was a writer. So thank you for asking that question.
Well, if that's the first thing you ever wanted to be, you gotta circle back on that, because
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
where you are now is not prohibiting you from that. In
No,
fact,
not at all.
I think it's only gonna amplify the ability you have to really break into that, especially if you're
Hmm.
actively writing. I mean, that's what other writers that I've interviewed countless times, they're just like, the tip they have is just write every day. Sit down, especially if you have nothing to write about, sit down and write, because that's
Yeah,
going to train your brain to do it, right?
yeah, and it only makes sense if Lin Manuel is my like one of my idols to want to want to write and act in your own things. It only makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, just write your own stuff. I get it. Real quick, just to wrap up on Anne Juliet, do you have a favorite moment? A favorite moment in the show that is about Francois, your character?
That is about him.
Yeah, yeah. That you
Yeah.
get to participate in. Because the
Yeah.
follow-up is, do you have a favorite moment that you're not in?
I think my favorite moment in the show would have to be the wedding to the end. I get my first solo in the show, which is As Long as You Love Me.
I don't care who you are, where you're from, what you did, as long as you love me. Who you are, where you're from, don't care what you did, as long as you love me.
Which always reminds me of the time of recording the album, and that song on the album is just one take. And Max,
Really?
while he was producing it, while he was producing it, was like, "That's good with me. Are you good with that?" And I was like, "Sure, amazing."
Wow.
So getting to sing that every night, I don't know, it makes me feel really good because I feel really proud of that song on the album. I don't know, it's always a quick little reminder to that moment that brought me so much joy.
Well, now I need to go back and listen to it again, knowing that it was just first and only take. That sounds awesome. Wow. Yeah, I listen to the cast album a lot. All right. So then what is the moment, again, the moment favorite in the show that is not to do with Francois?
I think when Romeo enters.
Yo, yeah.
How can you not like that? I get to see it every day. I'm on stage left, and I'm just watching him come down. There was one show where he got stuck. We're not gonna talk about that.
How did he come down? You're like, did they pause the show, or did he like have
They
to
did.
go up and come? Oh man.
You bet your ass they did.
Oh, that's funny. Usually you hear about that on the Twitterverse. I didn't catch that one.
He just
That's
was
funny.
stuck in the air, and then he
Oh.
waved.
Hi, how you doing? Okay, so the 3 closing questions I ask everyone just to wrap up normally now are the first one being, what motivates you?
A want and a need to always be better, to always improve, to always change, and to always grow, always learn. I always want to be the best version I can be.
I like it. What advice would you give to your younger self and younger people listening now starting out down a similar path?
Relax. Like, just chill out. Take a breath. It's all going to work out the way that it's supposed to. I think the thing that I also need to tell myself every day is to like release control. That's the biggest thing. You don't need to control it all. It's all going to happen.
Love it. Okay, so this is the hardest question here. If you can only see one show for the rest of your life, but you can see it as many times as you want, what would you see?
Sweeney Todd. Sweeney Todd, baby.
The current
Love
version
that show.
or any particular version?
I gotta see the current version.
Oh,
You
you
know
haven't
what?
seen it.
Little Shop of Horrors would be good too.
Yo, yeah.
If I had to
I
pick
agree.
one, maybe it's Little Shop.
Yeah, it's
Little
tough.
Shop.
Those are 2 very good ones. Good choices. All right, so where can we find you
Thank you.
online, social media?
At PhilippeArroyo at Philippe Arroyo, Instagram.
You can get more of me at thetheaterpodcast.com. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. Leave a rating and review wherever you are listening. And Philippe, thank you. This has been
Thank you
hell
so
of a
much
lot
for
of
having
fun.
me.